Hey everyone, if you're watching this, whether it's the quiet of night or the buzz of midday, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe. You're about to step into something truly different. The year is 1347. You aren't just reading history, you're in it. You wake up not in your comfortable bed, but shivering in the biting chill of a medieval winter morning. The air, heavy with the smell of damp earth and wood smoke, scrapes your throat like a rusted blade with every breath. Your eyes flutter open, adjusting to the gloom. It's not dark, but a perpetual twilight filtered through a tiny, grimy window high on a stone wall. You feel the hard, unyielding surface of a wooden bench pressing against your back, the cold seeping right through your thin tunic. Your fingers, stiff and numb, try to rub some warmth into each other, but it's a losing battle. A dull ache throbs in your joints, a constant companion in this world. You pull your threadbare wool cloak tighter, wishing it were thicker, wishing it were anything but this perpetually cold fabric. Your gaze travels across the sparse, functional room. Stone walls, rough and uneven, seem to absorb any hint of warmth. Across from you, another figure, hunched over a heavy oak desk, barely registers in your peripheral vision. They're a shadow against the weak light, their presence marked only by the repetitive, precise sound that fills the silence, the cold, thin scratch of a quill on parchment. It's a rhythmic, almost relentless sound, like insects gnawing at wood, amplified in the frosty air. You realize you're sitting at a similar desk, an open, heavy tome before you. Ink, thick and dark, sits in a small pot, already half frozen at the edges. Your own fingers, despite their numbness, are stained with it. You pick up the quill, the feather stiff and cold in your grasp. The parchment beneath your hand feels like brittle ice, crackling faintly as you touch it. You try to guide the nib, but your hand trembles, a combination of the cold and something else, a deep, pervasive weariness that has settled into your bones. You glance at the words already on the page, the Latin script precise and formal, though your own recent additions are a messy scrawl. The figure across from you continues their work, their concentration absolute, not a single wasted movement. You catch a glimpse of their face for a moment, sharp, angular, etched with a similar fatigue, but also a stark determination. No warmth, no comfort, just the steady, unwavering pursuit of task. You are part of this silent, chilly machinery, a cog in a world far removed from the one you knew. Here, even the simplest act of writing becomes an immense struggle against the cold and the weight of an unseen purpose. You wonder what it means to live like this, every day a quiet battle against the elements, yet still, the work must be done. You are still there. The chill of the morning clinging to your clothes, the dull ache in your fingers a familiar companion. You're wrestling with your own sprawling script, trying to make it conform to the precise, almost ornamental Latin in the open tome before you. The rhythmic scratching of the other scribe's quill across the room continues, a steady, unceasing pulse in the frigid air, a counterpoint to the quiet thrumming in your own head. You dip your quill into the ink pot, the cold making the movement stiff, almost painful, a tiny shiver running up your arm. Then, a subtle shift, not a sound, not yet, but a faint, almost imperceptible change in the air pressure around you, as if a heavy wooden door, previously sealed tight against the world, has just briefly yielded. You don't look up immediately, accustomed to the quiet diligence of the scriptorium, where interruptions are rare and significant. But then, a soft, dry rustle, a sound distinct from the familiar scrape of your quill or the slow, deliberate turning of a heavy page. It's the sound of thin, fragile paper. Your eyes drift from your half-finished line of text. A hand, pale and slender, is now poised over your desk, emerging from the deep shadow of a cowl. It belongs to the same silent figure who shares this cold chamber, their face perpetually obscured. With an economy of motion, almost without disturbing the air, the hand places a new piece of parchment directly in front of you, nudging your own work slightly aside. This isn't the thick, almost creamy vellum you've been using for your copies. This sheet is thinner, coarser, with a texture like dried, pressed leaves, surprisingly light, yet holding a curious tension. It carries a faint scent, not of the old vellum or the common lamp oil, but of something raw, perhaps fresh from the mill, mixed with a hint of human urgency, a faint acrid tang that prickles at your nose. You find yourself staring at it, your own quill forgotten. The words etched into it are not the formal, carefully calligraphed script you're used to. Instead, they are hurried, uneven, written in a different hand altogether, with a darker, almost crude ink that bleeds slightly into the rough fibers. The lines waver. Some letters are smudged. Others are pressed so hard they've nearly torn the delicate paper, a testament to the haste or emotion of the writer. It looks like it was penned in secret, perhaps in the flickering light of a single candle. Your eyes scan the anonymous text, darting across the familiar Latin, though the unfamiliar script makes it a struggle. You don't need to read every single word to grasp its essence. The accusations are clear, sharp, even through the messy scrawl. Names, places, specific actions. It is a denunciation, raw and unadorned, a weaponized whisper. The full weight of it presses down on you, not physically on the parchment, but internally, a sudden, piercing cold dread in your gut that dwarfs the chill of the room. This isn't just a record or a copy. It's a spark, a tiny, brittle thing, given physical form, with the terrifying power to unravel an entire life, or many. The scribe's hand withdraws as silently as it appeared, melting back into the shadows, leaving you alone with the fragile yet impossibly heavy sheet of paper. You feel the immense, quiet burden of a secret violently brought into the official light, its origin hidden, its consequences potentially devastating, all resting here, now, on your cold wooden desk. In this age, a few scrawled words from an unseen hand can shift the very ground beneath someone's feet. The air around you isn't just cold anymore. It's thick, heavy, almost viscous with the scent of age. You breathe it in, and it feels like inhaling powdered history. A dry, musty aroma of ancient stone, decaying parchment, and something else, something indefinable, like trapped expectation. Your nose prickles with it, a constant, low-level irritation. You've moved from the sharp chill of the scriptorium, but not towards warmth, only a different kind of oppressive stillness. You sit on a rough, unvarnished wooden bench, its surface worn smooth by countless others who have waited here before you. Splinters seem to cling to the coarse weave of your tunic, though you can't quite feel them through the layer of weariness that now coats your skin. The silence in this room isn't empty. It's a living entity, pressing in on your ears, amplifying the faint thrum of your own heartbeat. It's the kind of silence that demands respect, that discourages even the slightest rustle or shift. Your eyes trace the uneven patterns in the gray stone walls, lit by the weak, yellowish glow filtering through a narrow, deeply recessed window. Dust motes dance lazily in the slivers of light, the only things in this chamber that seem to possess any sense of movement. The window itself is too high to see anything but a sliver of an indifferent, overcast sky. There are no tapestries, no comforting images, just the stark, unyielding stone. You flex your fingers, still stiff from the morning's work, but now also tinged with a new tension. The sensation of the rough parchment, with its frantic, anonymous script, still lingers on your fingertips, a phantom touch. You shift subtly on the bench, and the quiet creak of the old wood echoes unnaturally loud in the profound quiet, making you involuntarily flinch. You glance around, half expecting a reaction, but the space remains still. Across the room, another figure sits, hunched, their face obscured by shadows and the cowl of their simple robe. They are as motionless as a carved statue, an embodiment of patience, or perhaps resignation. You avoid their gaze, not out of animosity, but because in this place, direct eye contact feels like an invasion, a breach of the unspoken code of solitary endurance. You are all here for reasons known only to the silent observers, and the best strategy is to become as unnoticeable as possible. Time feels less like a river flowing and more like a stagnant pool in this chamber. Minutes stretch into an uncomfortable eternity. You become hyper-aware of your own body, the faint ache in your back, the quiet gurgle of your stomach, the way your breath catches sometimes. Each small sensation is magnified, leaving you suspended in an unsettling limbo, waiting for an unknown signal. This waiting, you realize, is a subtle form of interrogation itself, designed to wear down the edges of resistance, to make you acutely aware of the power held by those who dictate the rhythm of your day. You begin to understand that sometimes the greatest weight isn't pain, but the simple, unyielding passage of time under an unknown gaze. A subtle shift in the musty air, a deeper shadow moving across the narrow light from the corridor. You are finally led out of the oppressive silence of the waiting room, not by a shout or a shove, but by a quiet nod. Your footsteps echo faintly on the cold stone floor as you are guided through a short, dark passage, and then into another chamber. Here, the air doesn't smell of old dust and expectation. It carries a faint, sharp scent of beeswax and old wood, almost sterile, but no less intimidating. You stand before a heavy, polished oak table, its surface gleaming faintly in the light from a single large candle. The flickering flame casts dancing shadows on the high walls, which are hung not with tapestries, but with simple dark fabric, absorbing all sound. There's no window here. You feel a prickle of sweat at your hairline, despite the persistent chill in the room. Behind the table sits the Inquisitor. Not a towering, terrifying figure, but a man of medium stature, dressed in plain, dark robes, his face framed by a simple hood. His hands are clasped calmly on the tabletop, fingers interlaced, a small silver crucifix resting on the back of his right hand. His eyes, though, are what draw your attention. They are unnervingly clear, a deep, intelligent gray that seems to miss nothing, yet betray no emotion. There's no anger in them, no malice, just an absolute, unwavering focus. He gestures for you to sit on a plain, backless wooden stool placed opposite him. It's low, forcing you to look slightly up, a subtle assertion of authority. You settle onto it, feeling exposed, every movement feeling clumsy and loud. The silence that follows is different from the waiting room. This is an active, charged silence, like the air before a storm. Then he speaks. His voice is measured, calm, almost soft, entirely devoid of inflection. It's a voice that demands attention not through volume, but through its sheer, unshakable steadiness. He asks your name, your parentage, your village. Simple, factual questions, delivered with the cadence of someone recording information, not accusing. Yet, each question feels like a fine needle, probing, assessing. You hear your own voice, surprisingly weak, answering. He then places a single piece of parchment on the table between you, nudging it gently forward with one finger. It's the anonymous denunciation, the hurried, messy script looking even more stark against the dark, polished wood. He doesn't point, doesn't accuse, doesn't even lift his gaze from your face. His next question is equally calm, almost conversational. It concerns a detail within the hurried scrawl, a particular alleged transgression. You feel a dryness in your throat, a sudden hollowness in your stomach. Your mind races, trying to recall events, conversations, faces, sifting through the mundane details of your life for anything that might connect to these crude accusations. The Inquisitor watches, patiently, his gaze unwavering, betraying nothing. It's not an aggressive stare, but a quiet, penetrating observation. He simply waits. His calm is more disarming than any shouted threat. His soft questions more terrifying than a roar. It makes you realize that sometimes the true weight of judgment isn't found in fire or fury, but in the cold, measured assessment of an unfeeling eye. An insistent, rasping friction gnaws at your shoulders, a constant, low-level irritation that blooms into a widespread itch beneath your tunic. It's not just discomfort. It's a new, unwelcome sensation, raw and persistent. You shift, trying to alleviate it, but it clings to you, a second skin of pure, abrasive protest. This isn't the familiar, if thin, wool of your old clothes. This is something else entirely. You run your hand over your chest, feeling the thick, uneven weave of the garment now covering you. It's a coarse, undyed wool, stiff and unyielding, like a sack fashioned crudely into a tunic. Each individual thread seems to possess a tiny barb, pricking your skin with every subtle movement. It hangs heavy, an ungraceful weight that pulls at your shoulders and restricts your natural swing. This is the San Benito, and its presence is inescapable. A faint, earthy smell rises from the fabric. A raw scent of sheep and dampness, unprocessed and untamed, mingling with the old stone smell of the building. Your hands, still bearing the faint, cold stain of ink from the scriptorium, now rub uselessly against this new, rough texture. It's an external burden, but it feels deeply internal, like the discomfort has seeped into your very bones. You glance down, observing the rough-stitched symbols emblazoned on the front and back, stark, crudely painted shapes in dark red, proclaiming your designated penance. They're not elegant. They're designed to be immediately visible, universally legible. You feel an acute, almost visceral awareness of these symbols, not just on the fabric, but in the air around you, broadcasting your status to anyone who might look your way. It's a public declaration, a silent sermon stitched into your very clothes. When you walk, the coarse fabric rustles with a dry, scraping sound, a continuous whisper of your penance trailing behind you. Every step feels deliberate, burdened, as if the garment itself adds resistance to the air. You try to keep your gaze down, avoiding the eyes of the few silent figures you pass in the echoing corridors. You sense their glances, not outright stares but quick, assessing looks, followed by a slight, almost imperceptible shift away from you. The San Benito acts like a barrier, separating you, marking you as distinct. The chill of the stone walls now feels different, less an external cold, and more like an extension of the cold that has settled into your own marked identity. You are not just a person in a cold place. You are a person wearing the cold, rough weight of a new role. The sheer physical discomfort is a constant reminder, a continuous sermon whispered against your skin, a unique way to understand the pervasive reach of judgment in this world. You realize that a penitent's garment isn't just a costume, it's an experience, a living lesson in humility and enduring discomfort, a constant physical echo of an internal state. The hot sun beats down on your head, even through the thin cowl of your coarse garment. But it's not the heat that first overwhelms you. It's the sound. A low, surging murmur of hundreds, thousands of voices. A human tide washing over you. Then a sudden collective hush as you are led into the vast square. And the smell. Sweat, cheap wine, and the pungent odor of unwashed bodies mixed with something sharp, like burning wood from distant hearths, and the metallic tang of fear that seems to cling to the air itself. You move forward, one of many in a slow, shuffling line. The rough fabric of the San Benito chafes against your shoulders, now made even more irritating by the unexpected warmth of the midday sun. Each step feels heavy, deliberate, as if you're wading through thick mud, though the ground beneath your bare or thinly shod feet is hard, packed earth. The crowd parts, then closes behind you, a living, breathing wall on either side. You can feel their eyes, 1,000 points of invisible pressure, like tiny pinpricks on your skin, inspecting the symbols painted on your wool. You keep your gaze fixed straight ahead, trying to block out the faces, but they are unavoidable. You catch glimpses. A woman with a stern, unforgiving expression. A child, wide-eyed with a mixture of fear and fascination. An old man, shaking his head slowly, a grim sorrow etched on his features. They are all watching you, watching all of you, an audience in a theater of penance. Up ahead, a raised platform dominates the square. It's constructed of rough-hewn timbers, draped with dark cloths, and on it, robed figures stand with solemn stillness. Before them, rows of other penitents are already arranged, their San Benitos, a sea of coarse fabric under the glaring sun. You are guided to an empty spot, jostled gently into position by a robed attendant. The silence that falls as the last of you are seated is immense, deep, broken only by the occasional cough from the crowd or the distant cry of a bird. A voice, deep and resonant, booms from the platform, amplified by the vast, open space. It's the voice of a cleric, delivering a long, formal pronouncement in Latin, the words flowing over you like a river of stone. You don't grasp every detail, but the overarching tone is clear. Gravity, judgment, warning. You feel the collective gaze shift from the speaker to the assembled penitents, a wave of scrutiny washing over you all. The red symbols on your chest and back, so recently a private torment, are now starkly public, a billboard declaring your shame for the entire community to witness. The sun continues to beat down, and the rough wool becomes increasingly uncomfortable. trapping the heat, making your skin itch and prickle. You feel a strange sense of detachment, as if this is happening to someone else, a figure in a grim play, while you, the true you, observe from afar. Yet, the physical discomfort, the burning sun, the relentless itching, and the crushing weight of 1,000 judging eyes are undeniably real. You sit there, a silent actor in this grand public spectacle, understanding that sometimes the sharpest pain isn't found in torture, but in the slow, drawn-out exposure of one's own perceived failings before the unwavering gaze of the world. It's a silent, searing lesson in collective power and individual vulnerability. You lift a piece of bread to your mouth. It crumbles dryly between your fingers, giving off a faint, yeasty scent that is immediately overwhelmed by the damp, earthy smell of the cell. The first bite is like sawdust, stale and rough, scraping against the roof of your mouth. It tastes less like nourishment, and more like a reminder of scarcity, a chewable form of the fear that has been clenching your stomach. You swallow with effort, the dry lump barely moving down your throat. The cell is a box of shadows. Your fingers trace the rough-hewn stone wall beside you, the cold seeping into your fingertips, gritty and damp. There's no window, only a narrow slit high on the wall that lets in a perpetual gloom, a watery gray light that never seems to change, never hints at morning or night. The air is stagnant, heavy with the scent of mildew and unwashed stone, and a faint, acrid undertone that you recognize now as your own accumulating despair. You break off another small piece of bread, turning it over in your fingers, almost studying its dry texture. Each mouthful is a conscious act, a battle against your protesting throat, a small victory against the emptiness that gnaws at you. You search the corners of the room with your eyes, though there's nothing to see. Just stone, shadows, and the occasional scuttling sound of something small and unseen in the distant darkness. You remember the public square, the thousands of eyes, the pronouncements. Now here, there are no eyes, no voices, but the echo of your own thoughts. The silence in here is different from the waiting room. That was expectant. This is absolute, pressing in on your ears, amplifying the frantic rhythm of your own heart. It's a silence that invites introspection, but the thoughts that come are not comforting. They circle like trapped birds, always returning to the questions, the accusations, the unknown duration of this confinement. You try to conjure a memory, a friendly face, a warm fire, but the images feel distant, like trying to grasp smoke. The stale taste in your mouth persists, an echo of the taste of fear itself, a constant companion in this cold, solitary box. You take another laborious bite, forcing yourself to chew, to continue this slow, small act of existence, knowing that even this meager sustenance is a temporary stay against the deeper hunger of uncertainty. You realize that in here, removed from sight and sound, the real battle isn't with external forces, but with the quiet, persistent erosion of your own spirit, sustained only by the coarsest bread and the stubborn pulse of life. A peculiar, almost sickly sweet smell, unlike anything you've encountered before, fills your nostrils. It's the scent of old frankincense, heavy and cloying, mixed with the ever-present dampness of ancient stone. It coats your throat, a thin, almost invisible film, and makes the air feel thick, solemn. Beneath this, a sound, a low, resonant hum, a voice intoning, not speaking, but delivering a steady, rhythmic stream of Latin that vibrates in your very chest, a deep thrumming that seems to penetrate bone. You are seated again on another hard, unyielding bench, one of a small, silent gathering in a low vaulted stone chamber. The air here feels compressed, hushed. Light struggles to enter through a high, grimy window, casting long, distorted shadows that dance with the subtle shifts of candlelight from a single candelabra near the speaker. The chill of the building persists, a constant companion, but now it seems imbued with an almost sacred quality by the incense. Before you, a figure in dark robes stands, not behind a table this time, but simply within the space. Their hands are not clasped, but held open slightly, gesturing occasionally, slowly, with an almost hypnotic grace. You cannot clearly see their face from this distance, only the outline of their cowl against the dim light. But their voice, though not loud, is perfectly clear, each word carrying an immense, almost physical weight. It's not the sharp, probing questions of an interrogation, nor the grand pronouncements of a public square. This is different. You don't understand every intricate theological point being articulated in the classical Latin, but the overall message seeps into you, not through intellect, but through persistent, almost hypnotic repetition. The discomfort you felt, the gnawing hunger, the coarse scratch of your garment, the chilling cold, the endless waiting, the fear. These are not random. The droning voice frames them as necessary, as beneficial, as a cleansing fire for the soul. It suggests that suffering, when accepted in humility, is a path, a purification. You feel a subtle ache in your back from holding your posture, from the sheer mental effort of remaining still, absorbing these abstract concepts that now feel terrifyingly concrete. You glance around at the other figures on the benches, their forms indistinct in the gloom. They too are still, their silence an echo of your own, their bowed heads suggesting a similar internal struggle, or perhaps acceptance. The scent of incense curls around you, ethereal, making the very air feel heavy with spiritual purpose. The persistent, unwavering voice continues its rhythmic explanation, building its case, layer by layer, until the very discomfort of your body, the gnawing in your stomach, the persistent chill, begin to feel less like random afflictions and more like deliberate tools. You realize with a chilling clarity that the suffering isn't simply something inflicted upon you. It's being presented as something for you, a divine medicine, a path to salvation. The sheer chilling elegance of a system that transforms pain into a form of virtue, making the endure its own penance, leaves you with a profound and unsettling understanding of the human capacity to both inflict and justify hardship in the name of a higher, often invisible, purpose. The dry, papery scent of old documents, mixed with the faint, sweet smell of beeswax polish, fills your nostrils. It's not a comforting aroma, but a precise, almost clinical blend, like a ledger freshly opened. You're in a small, windowless storeroom, the air cool and still, punctuated only by the soft thud of objects being placed onto a worn wooden table before you. The rough-hewn stone walls absorb all sound, making the space feel both intimate and oppressive. Before you lies a heavy, leather-bound ledger, its pages already filled with precise, elegant script. Your quill, familiar and well-used, rests beside an open inkpot. Your task is to record, to translate the tangible remnants of a life into neat lines of Latin, stripped of all personal resonance. A robed figure, silent and efficient, brings each item forward. Their movements are practiced, almost ritualistic, devoid of emotion. They hold up a small, tarnished silver locket, its surface dulled by time and handling. You see a faint, almost erased engraving on it, a single initial. The figure turns it over in their palm, examines it for a moment with a detached gaze, then places it gently on the table. You dip your quill, the cold nib scraping softly across the parchment as you record. Item: 1 silver locket, tarnished. No mention of the initial, no speculation of whose image might once have resided within. Just a factual description. Next, a wooden spoon, its handle smoothed by countless meals, its bowl chipped at the edge. It feels warm and familiar, even to your brief touch, embodying humble use. But in the ledger, it becomes item: 1 wooden spoon, common. A plain, roughly woven cloak follows, faded and patched, carrying the faint, earthy smell of human wear and exposure to the elements. Its texture is coarse against your fingertips as you briefly handle it to estimate its condition. You note down: item: 1 wool cloak, worn, patched. The procession continues. A set of iron keys, cold and heavy in your palm, rattling softly as you place them down. A small clay figurine, its features almost erased by time. A thin, leather-bound book, its pages brittle, its ink faded. Each item, once a part of someone's daily existence, now exists purely as an entry in a list, its intrinsic worth defined by its material and its condition, not by memory or sentiment. The robed figure never speaks, never makes eye contact. Their silence is as methodical as their movements, emphasizing the cold, bureaucratic nature of this dismantling. You feel the weight of each object, not its physical mass, but the unspoken stories it contains, now being neatly filed away, sanitized of all humanity. The methodical scraping of your quill is the only constant sound, turning a person's entire world into a series of inventory entries. You understand that this isn't just about confiscation. It's about the erasure of presence, the reduction of a life to a mere collection of objects, neatly catalogued, every emotional tether severed, every personal mark systematically ignored. This cold, administrative process, you realize, is a powerful silence that speaks volumes about what remains and what is utterly, purposefully lost. The crisp, dry rustle of heavy parchment fills the air, a sound both delicate and utterly final. It's distinct from the gentle scrape of your quill or the turning of a page. This sound carries with it a new weight, an echo of authority. And with it, the sharp, almost metallic tang of fresh, dark ink, newly applied, still damp on the page. You're still at the table, the light from the narrow slit in the wall casting the same perpetual gloom, but the pile of collected items from before is gone. The robed figure, silent as ever, stands at your shoulder, their presence a palpable pressure. Without a word, they place a new document before you. It's larger than the anonymous denunciation, meticulously prepared, its edges sharp and unfrayed. This isn't a hasty scribble. It's an official decree, painstakingly drafted, its formal Latin script flowing in neat, deliberate lines. You feel the cool, slightly grainy texture of the heavy vellum beneath your fingers as you reach out, almost instinctively, to steady it. Your eyes trace the words, the precise terminology. It details not just the confiscated items, but the legal framework, the pronouncement of guilt, the formal severing of rights. It speaks of properties, lands, entitlements, all now deemed forfeited to the church and crown. This isn't just a list of objects. It's the methodical dismantling of an entire existence, codified in ink. You sense the immense, abstract power contained within these words, a power that needs no sword or fire, only the careful application of script and seal. At the very bottom, in a designated space, a heavy wax seal is already affixed. It's dark, almost black, bearing the intricate, unmistakable impression of authority, a bishop's mitre, the symbols of the Inquisition. You run your thumb over its cool, firm surface. It feels solid, unyielding, an immutable mark of finality. The precise application of this seal is a quiet act, yet it possesses a power far beyond any shouting or physical coercion. It signifies an official, irreversible closure. The robed figure gestures, a slight, almost imperceptible movement of their hand towards your quill. You understand. You are to formally acknowledge receipt, perhaps to witness, to sign your own name, a small, inconsequential signature beneath the sprawling ornate Latin. Your hand, still cold from the scriptorium, feels heavy as you pick up the quill. The familiar nib touches the new, crisp parchment, adding your small, precise mark to this grand, chilling edifice of bureaucracy. As you write, you hear the faint, dry rustle of the document again, a sound now imbued with a profound sense of finality. It feels like you're not just signing a paper, but contributing a tiny, necessary cog to a vast, invisible machine. You realize, with a profound chill that has nothing to do with the winter air, that the true power here isn't in overt force or dramatic spectacle. It's in the meticulous order, the unfeeling process, the quiet administrative efficiency with which an entire life can be dismantled, documented, and absorbed into the greater will of the institution. A few words, a simple seal, and the world is irrevocably altered. A different kind of chill seeps into your bones now, one that prickles your scalp and makes the hair on your arms stand on end. It's not the damp cold of a cell, nor the antiseptic air of a scribe's chamber. This air carries the faint, dry scent of old timber and something else, a subtle, almost imperceptible whiff of something akin to nervous sweat. You're in a small, cramped room, completely dark save for a thin sliver of light filtering from beneath a heavy, rough-hewn wooden door directly in front of you. You can feel the rough grain of the wood against your knees as you sit, hunched, on a low stool. Silence presses in, heavy and expectant, amplifying the frantic thump of your own heart. Then, a sound from beyond the door. Not a shout, not a slam, but a slow, deliberate creak, as if a weight is being shifted. Your breath catches in your throat. You feel a sudden dryness, a taste like ash in your mouth. Then, a voice. It's muffled, distorted slightly by the thick wood, but unmistakably human. It starts low, hesitant, almost a whisper. You strain to hear, your entire body tensing, every nerve sharpened. The language is the familiar local dialect, not the formal Latin you've grown accustomed to hearing in these dark halls. It speaks of daily routines, small observations, trivial matters that suddenly take on an immense, threatening significance. And then, a word. A peculiar inflection. A slight catch at the end of a sentence. A unique way of emphasizing a particular syllable. Your stomach clenches, a sudden icy knot forming deep within you. It can't be. You lean forward, pressing your ear instinctively closer to the unyielding timber, desperate for more. Desperate for it not to be. But the next sentence confirms it. A casual turn of phrase. A distinct cadence that you have heard 1,000 times over market stalls, across garden fences, in the echoing space of the village well. It's the voice of Thomas, the cooper, your neighbor. The man whose children played with yours, whose laughter you shared over a mug of ale. He is speaking, calmly, methodically, and the words now start to paint a picture of you, of your life, but distorted, twisted, filtered through a lens of suspicion. He describes a conversation, an action, a moment you barely remember, or one that held no particular meaning at the time. Yet, in his careful retelling, it sounds sinister, damning. You feel a wave of disbelief, cold and sickening, wash over you. The raw ache in your chest isn't from the cold, but from the sudden, profound sense of betrayal. The sound of his voice, once a comforting part of your everyday world, is now a weapon, each familiar intonation a barb. You clench your hands, nails digging into your palms, a desperate, futile attempt to ground yourself against the surge of shock. How can a voice so familiar, so intrinsically linked to your sense of home, be delivering these words, unraveling the very fabric of your existence with such quiet, steady precision? You realize that sometimes the sharpest blow isn't delivered by an enemy's hand, but by a neighbor's tongue, turning trust into a tool of devastating, quiet destruction. The lingering echo of Thomas's voice, that familiar cadence, now feels like a shard of ice lodged firmly in your chest. It's not just the memory of his words, but the way his voice, once a sound of everyday life, has utterly poisoned your perception of everything. You're not in a cramped room anymore, but your mind is still there, replaying the sounds, the revelations. The cold knot in your stomach has settled deeper, a permanent tenant. You look at faces now, the faces of those around you, and they are no longer just faces. They are masks. You see the silent scribe, his head still bent, his quill still scratching, and wonder, what denunciations has he copied? Whose lives has he quietly unraveled with his neat, precise Latin? You see the hooded figure who placed the parchment before you, their features forever in shadow, and you wonder if they too are from your village, from your past. The sense of community, once a warm, thick blanket, feels suddenly frayed, almost transparent. Every glance from a passerby, every averted eye, every hushed conversation suddenly takes on a sinister new meaning. You remember the quick smiles exchanged in the market, the easy banter by the village well. Now each memory is tainted, recast through the bitter lens of suspicion. Was that smile genuine, or merely a pretense? Was that casual question a genuine curiosity, or a subtle probe, gathering details for some unseen ledger? You find yourself dissecting interactions, searching for hidden motives, for the slightest crack in the facade. A neighbor's sudden silence when you approach, a tradesman's overly polite deference, a child quickly pulled away. These are not accidental. They are tiny fissures appearing in the social fabric, growing wider with every passing moment. The comfortable certainty of shared lives has evaporated, replaced by a chilling uncertainty. The air itself seems heavier, charged with unspoken fears. You breathe it in, and it feels like suspicion, a thin, acrid vapor that seeps into every interaction. The sounds of daily life, the distant clang of a blacksmith, the faint bleating of sheep, the murmur of voices, are no longer background noise. They are now foreground, each one carrying a potential hidden message. You strain to interpret them, to discern the whispers from the genuine greetings, the accusations from the casual observations. The most unsettling realization is the insidious nature of it all. It's not a monstrous, singular threat, but 1,000 tiny cuts, inflicted by ordinary hands, ordinary voices. The very people who once provided comfort, the very structures that held your world together, are now the instruments of its potential undoing. You walk through what was once your familiar world, but it has become a landscape of shadows, populated by strangers, each one a potential accuser. The true horror isn't just the personal betrayal, but the shattering understanding that trust, once broken, can unravel an entire world, leaving a pervasive, chilling paranoia in its wake. The air in this chamber holds a peculiar clarity, sharp with the scent of lamp oil and the dry, ancient aroma of countless leather-bound books. It's a quiet, scholarly atmosphere, almost studious, but infused with an unsettling, relentless pressure that has nothing to do with physical force. You sit across from the Inquisitor again, but this time the heavy oak table between you is not bare. It's adorned with meticulously stacked tomes, their pages open, their script dense with theological arguments. The cold, polished wood of the table presses against your forearms, an insistent, minor discomfort that becomes a dull ache under the strain. His voice is as calm as before, a low, even cadence, but now it's like a scalpel, precise and unerring. He doesn't raise it, doesn't rush, but each word feels deliberately placed, a stone in an intricate, inescapable path. He begins not with an overt accusation, but with a question, a philosophical query about the very nature of belief, the subtle distinctions of divine grace, the definition of faith itself. You try to grasp the premise, to formulate an answer, but the terms seem to shift subtly, like sand underfoot, always just beyond your complete understanding. You feel your mind churning, a frantic effort to keep pace, to parse the intricate Latin, to understand the subtle distinctions he draws between simple misinterpretation and outright heresy, between fleeting doubt and unforgivable apostasy. You offer a tentative thought, a half-formed idea, but he doesn't wait for your full response. Instead, he builds upon your words, taking your raw material and twisting it gently, yet inexorably, towards a conclusion that feels alien, dangerous, utterly disconnected from your original intent. It's like watching a master weaver at work, each thread you provide becoming part of a pattern you didn't even conceive, let alone desire. He presents you with scenarios, hypothetical dilemmas, each one crafted to test the boundaries of your understanding, to expose the logical flaws in your unscholarly grasp of dogma. You feel a persistent knot forming in your temples, a dull, throbbing ache behind your eyes as you strive desperately to connect his complex arguments to the simple, heartfelt truths you thought you held. The silence that follows his pronouncements is immense, heavy, expectant, demanding not just an answer but a correct answer, one that fits neatly within his own intricate, inescapable framework. The dry rustle of the massive, ancient books as he turns a page, pointing to a line of text with a long, slender finger, becomes an almost deafening sound in the quiet room. "Here," he says, his voice a soft, unwavering drone. The angelic doctor states definitively, "And you are trapped, not by physical chains, but by logic, by the sheer, overwhelming weight of centuries of codified thought. Your simple, heartfelt belief feels flimsy, inadequate, utterly unprepared against this intellectual assault. Every defense you attempt is met with another carefully constructed counter-argument, another obscure citation, another redefinition of terms that pulls the ground from under your feet. You realize that this is not about revealing your lies, but about demonstrating the inherent error of your thought, about proving meticulously and undeniably that your own mind, unguided, has led you hopelessly astray. The exhaustion you feel isn't physical. It's the profound, bone-deep weariness of a mind wrestling with a system designed to be impenetrable, a logic intended to leave no logical escape. This, you grasp, is the chilling power of absolute, intellectual authority, dissecting your very soul with the precision of a scholar's pen, leaving you with an unnerving sense that your own thoughts are no longer truly your own. The persistent knot in your temples tightens with each measured word from the Inquisitor, a dull throb that pulses with the rhythm of his relentless, logical dismantling. The air, still sharp with lamp oil and aged parchment, feels impossibly heavy, pressing in on your mind. You try to anchor yourself, to find a simple, unassailable truth amidst the swirling Latin, but it's like reaching for smoke, your fingers grasping at nothing solid. He rephrases your own confused, halting answers, polishing them, shaping them with an almost surgical precision, until they become a perfect, damning statement that you barely recognize as your own. He doesn't accuse you. He merely lays out the logical consequences of your words, the inevitable conclusions that flow from your flawed premises. You feel your understanding fraying at the edges, the threads of your common sense snapping one by one, leaving you adrift in a sea of syllogisms. Each question isn't aggressive. It's merely sequential, a step on a predetermined path. You try to backtrack, to explain a nuance, to offer a different perspective, but he gently guides you forward, always forward, through the labyrinth he has constructed. But if this premise holds, then what follows logically from that, he asks, his voice soft, almost helpful, yet entirely unyielding. The more you attempt to explain, to clarify, to find an exit, the deeper you seem to sink into this intellectual quicksand. Your throat is dry, your tongue feels thick, as if the very act of desperate, futile thinking has consumed all moisture. You find yourself nodding, not in agreement, but in a profound, exhausting surrender to the sheer weight of his reasoning. He doesn't need to force you physically. His arguments are chains forged from your own words, your own attempts at clarity, twisted into undeniable proof of your error. The flickering candlelight reflects in his unnervingly clear gray eyes, which hold no judgment, only an unwavering expectation that you will eventually, inevitably, arrive at the predetermined conclusion. You watch his slender finger trace a line in another heavy tome, its pages brittle with age, the Latin script dense and unyielding. The text is clear, he states, his voice a low drone, and thus your interpretation, while perhaps well-intentioned, deviates significantly. Each deviation, each tiny misstep in thought, becomes a gaping chasm under his steady hand. You feel your autonomy of thought dissolving, replaced by a profound, chilling sense that your own mind, left to its own devices, is an unreliable and dangerous instrument. The scholarly quiet of the room, once merely a backdrop, now feels like a vacuum, sucking away your certainty, your ability to form a coherent, independent thought. You realize that reason, when wielded with such calculated expertise, can become the most inescapable prison of all, transforming your own consciousness into a labyrinth from which there is no discernible exit. A different kind of smell now finds its way to your senses. Not the dry, stale scent of parchment, nor the heavy, musty odor of old stone cells, but a clean, sharp, earthy aroma. It's the potent, comforting blend of dried herbs, a hint of pungent thyme, the clean freshness of rosemary, and a subtle, sweet undertone you can't quite place, perhaps chamomile. It fills your lungs with a surprising clarity, momentarily clearing the lingering dust from your mind. You are no longer on a hard, unyielding bench. You lie on something softer. A crude pallet, perhaps, but cushioned with straw, covered by a rough, clean linen sheet. Your body, usually a vessel of aches and cold, feels a strange, tentative warmth. Dim, natural light, softer than any you've seen in days, filters through a small, unglazed window, illuminating dancing dust motes, and the simple, functional surroundings. Bundles of dried herbs hang from the low, wooden ceiling beams, casting faint, intricate shadows, each one a tiny repository of quiet power. A presence moves near you. Not the rigid, robed figures of the previous days, but someone smaller, quieter. You don't see a face clearly, but you feel the gentle touch of hands, warm and surprisingly strong, yet infinitely careful. They move over your arm, bare now, inspecting the skin. There's no clinical detachment, no judgment, just a focused, steady attention. You feel the cool, wet press of a cloth against your forehead, followed by the soft, almost rhythmic stroking as it cleanses away the grime and sweat that have clung to you for too long. Then comes the application of something else. A thick, warm poultice, smelling strongly of earth and green leaves, is smoothed onto an aching joint. Perhaps your wrist, still stiff from endless hours of quill work. The warmth seeps deep, a dull, spreading comfort that replaces the sharp twinges you've learned to ignore. You feel a quiet relief, a subtle easing of muscles that have been tensed for what feels like an eternity. The sensation is pure, physical, with no hidden meaning or theological implication. It is simply an act of care. The healer works in silence, their movements economical, precise, their knowledge communicated not through words, but through the calm efficacy of their touch. You hear the soft rustle of dried leaves as they select another herb, a faint sigh from the small, glowing embers of a brazier in the corner, keeping the remedies warm. You breathe in, and the herbaceous scent feels like a balm, soothing not just your physical self, but the frantic, exhausted corners of your mind. For a precious few moments, the relentless intellectual dissection, the public shame, the gnawing fear, all recede. You are simply a body, being tended, understood in its simple, aching reality. You realize that sometimes, after the storm of abstract thought and societal judgment, the most profound comfort comes from the simplest, most ancient wisdom, the quiet power of gentle hands, and the healing strength drawn directly from the earth itself. It is a moment of pure, unadorned human connection, found in the most unexpected of places. The soothing warmth from the poultice on your arm begins to truly sink in, melting away a layer of tension you hadn't even realized you carried. The clean, sharp scent of herbs still fills the air, a balm to your senses. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the unfamiliar sense of care wash over you. But then, a subtle shift in the rhythm of the healer's hands. Their fingers, so gentle, now trace a deliberate, intricate pattern on your skin, almost imperceptibly. It's not a massage, it's a series of light, precise touches, following an unseen design. A prickle of unease starts to crawl up your spine, a cold sensation amidst the warmth. You open your eyes, discreetly watching. The healer's face is still obscured by shadow, their concentration absolute. They're humming now, a low melodic drone. Not a prayer you recognize, but something ancient, resonant. Their other hand hovers over a small wooden bowl, filled with shimmering liquid. As they dip their fingers, the liquid swirls, catching the dim light. It's not water. It looks thick, almost oily, shimmering with tiny, iridescent particles. A faint, almost bitter, metallic aroma now underlies the sweetness of the herbs. They bring their wet fingers to your lips, and a single drop falls. You taste it, a surprisingly strong, earthy sweetness, followed by a faint, metallic aftertaste. It's not unpleasant, but it's utterly alien, unlike any medicine you've ever known. The healer's gaze, though still unseen, feels intense, as if they are watching your very soul. You swallow, feeling a tremor run through you. You know instinctively that this is powerful, something beyond simple poultices and calming teas. Then, a faint sound from outside. A shuffle of feet, distant but distinct. Your breath catches. The healer's head doesn't move, but you sense a subtle tension in their shoulders, a momentary pause in their rhythmic hum. The air in the small room seems to thicken, the comfort suddenly fragile, transparent. You look around, at the bundles of hanging herbs, at the strange liquid, at the intricate patterns still being traced on your skin. These are acts of healing, you believe, acts of profound human kindness, but you also understand the world outside these walls. You understand how easily a melodic hum could be misinterpreted as a charm, an intricate touch as a spell, a potent liquid as a potion, and the powerful herbs as instruments of darker magic. The healer's hands finally still, resting lightly on your wrist. The warmth from the poultice is now a sharp contrast to the cold dread that has reasserted itself. You are better, yes, the aches lessened, a sense of vitality returning. But this healing, you realize, is a perilous gift. It has pulled you closer to a kind of knowledge, a kind of power, that society, and especially the Inquisition, fears and condemns above all else. You feel a profound and chilling understanding that the very act of seeking solace, of embracing a different kind of wisdom, can be the most dangerous act of all, turning a simple healer into a potential heretic and a grateful patient into a silent accomplice. The line, you now see, between cure and condemnation is terrifyingly thin, and you have just stepped across it. Your fingers, accustomed to the rough chill of stone and the coarse weave of penitent's cloth, brush against something unexpectedly different in the deepest recess of the hidden niche. Not smooth, not cold, but dry and slightly yielding. You draw it out, Slowly, your breath catching in your throat, the faint rustle of your tunic unnervingly loud in the profound silence of this forgotten space. It is a book. You hold it in your hands, a small, compact weight, surprisingly dense. The cover is a deep, aged leather, almost black, but softened to a dark, muted crimson in the meager, watery light filtering from an unseen crack high above. It feels ancient, dry and cool, almost brittle beneath your touch, with a texture like old sun-baked earth. Your thumb traces the intricate patterns embossed into its surface, not the familiar crosses or saints you're used to, but strange, twisting foliage, intertwined with figures that are half human, half beast, their eyes seemingly following the curves of your fingers. Each raised line, each sharply defined edge of the embossing, feels distinct, almost alive, sending a faint shiver through your fingertips. A subtle scent rises from the old leather and the tightly bound pages within. It's not the clean, crisp smell of fresh parchment or the comforting aroma of beeswax from the scriptorium. This is a deeper, earthier smell, like dried herbs forgotten in a dusty attic, mingled with something else. A faint, almost acrid tang, like old metal, or perhaps the scent of secrets themselves, long sealed. Your nostrils flare, drinking it in, a potent and unsettling perfume. Your heart begins to thump a frantic rhythm against your ribs, a drumbeat that feels deafening in the absolute quiet. You glance quickly over your shoulder, though you know you are utterly alone, hidden away in this forgotten nook of the sprawling stone building. The air seems to press in around you, heavy with unspoken danger. This isn't a sacred text. You know that without even seeing its contents. The very feel of it, the unusual symbols, the ominous scent, all conspire to proclaim its forbidden nature. It is a thing that exists outside the sanctioned light, a whispered truth that could shatter the careful order of things. You feel an almost irresistible urge to pry open its stiff cover, to unleash whatever knowledge lies entombed within its pages. The edge of the leather cover, worn smooth from unseen hands, seems to invite your touch. Your fingers tremble as you hesitate, caught between a powerful, consuming curiosity and a visceral, bone-deep dread of the consequences. To open it, you understand, is to invite not just knowledge, but danger. Each embossed line, each raised symbol, feels like a pulse against your skin. A silent, powerful whisper that defies the world outside, daring you to listen. This isn't just a book. It's a profound, tangible temptation, a concentrated ember of dissent held in your hands. You realize that sometimes the greatest weight isn't a physical burden, but the heavy, electrifying potential of a single, illicit object, threatening to unlock truths that could cost you everything. Your trembling fingers finally yield, and the heavy leather cover of the forbidden book creaks open with a soft, dry gasp, a sound like ancient breath escaping. A faint puff of dust, smelling distinctly of aged paper and something sharply herbal, rises and tickles your nose. The light from the narrow crack above barely penetrates, but it's enough to illuminate the first page. The parchment within is not the smooth, meticulously prepared vellum of the scriptorium, but a coarser, slightly yellowed material, irregular to the touch. The ink is dark, almost black and dense, the script elaborate but clearly not standard Latin. It's filled with intricate, hand-drawn symbols, swirling patterns that seem to move and intertwine, unlike any you've ever seen in a sanctioned text. Alongside these are strange, small illustrations, crude depictions of constellations you don't recognize, abstract geometric forms, and figures that hint at human anatomy, but with unsettling, exaggerated details. You run your finger along a line of text, the paper cool and dry. You can't read the language, but the images, the sheer conch and phobos of it all, speak volumes. You feel a jolt, a cold shock that runs deeper than the chill of the hidden niche. This isn't merely a different interpretation of Scripture. This is an entirely different framework, a parallel universe of understanding. It suggests different forces at play, different paths to truth, perhaps even a different creator. The air around you, usually still and heavy, now feels charged, almost crackling with the silent energy emanating from these forbidden pages. Your mind, so recently a battleground of scholastic arguments, now confronts something utterly outside that intricate logic. It's not just an idea, it's a fully formed alternative, a complete departure from everything you have been taught, everything the Inquisitor meticulously defended. You feel an unsettling thrill, a dangerous sense of possibility, mixed with a profound, bone-deep terror. You hear no footsteps, no sounds of pursuit, but a sudden, overwhelming sense of exposure floods you. The very act of holding this book, of gazing upon its forbidden contents, feels like an act of rebellion, a profound defiance that could unravel everything. The cool, dry parchment feels heavy in your hands, not with its physical weight, but with the immense, unseen burden of its dangerous knowledge. You realize that a single idea, if it deviates from the narrow path of doctrine, isn't just an error in logic. It is a fundamental challenge to the entire structure of the world, a spark that can ignite a conflagration. And you, merely by touching this book, are now holding that dangerous spark, feeling its potent, terrifying heat against your skin, understanding that some truths are not merely unwelcome, but are deemed so dangerous they can cost you your very existence. A thin, almost sweet steam curls upwards, tickling your nose with the faint scent of spiced wine. It's offered to you in a small, ceramic cup, its smooth, warm surface a startling comfort against the persistent chill in your hands, and the bone-deep ache that has settled into your joints. You're back in a familiar chamber, but this time, a small brazier glows softly in the corner, lending a deceptive, almost domestic warmth to the usually stark stone walls. The flickering light casts long, dancing shadows, making the room feel less threatening, yet no less watchful. The Inquisitor sits across from you, his dark robes less severe in this softer glow. His face, still composed and calm, now holds a different expression, not of relentless interrogation, but of quiet, almost paternal concern. He gestures subtly towards the cup, an encouraging nod inviting you into a shared understanding. His voice, when it comes, is softer than you remember, imbued with gentle solemnity, almost a quiet assurance. He speaks of salvation, of divine forgiveness, of a path back to the fold, each word carefully chosen, resonating with a quiet authority that feels both comforting and deeply unnerving. He explains, with patient, unwavering clarity, that the Church is merciful. It seeks not to punish for suffering's sake, but to guide the lost sheep back to the eternal flock. All that is required, he states, is a full, honest confession, a transparent acknowledgement of your errors, a heartfelt embrace of repentance. He pushes a clean, unblemished piece of parchment and a freshly sharpened quill across the heavy oak table towards you. Your confession, he implies with a faint, almost imperceptible tilt of his head, is the key to escaping further hardship, to mitigating past errors, to finding true peace, both earthly and divine. The cup's warmth feels less like genuine comfort and more like a gentle, persistent pressure, forcing your decision, even as a cold dread settles in your heart. You look at the blank page, then at his unwavering, expectant gaze. The air feels heavy, not with physical cold or palpable fear, but with the immense, invisible weight of his benign expectation. To confess is to admit guilt, perhaps for things you didn't truly believe, or for thoughts barely understood as transgressions. To refuse is to reject his mercy, to choose continued defiance, to invite unknown, potentially harsher consequences that lurk just beyond this deceptively warm chamber. The spiced wine, once welcome, now tastes like ash, a bittersweet reminder of the offered choice, which isn't a choice at all, but a demand cloaked in benevolence. You understand that this, mercy, is a different kind of trap, designed not to break your body, but to compel your soul, making you participate in your own condemnation, under the gentle, persuasive hand of a seemingly benevolent authority. You realize that true freedom isn't simply the absence of physical chains, but the ability to choose your own truth, even when mercy itself becomes the heaviest burden imaginable. The spiced wine, still warm in the ceramic cup, feels suddenly cloying, its sweetness now a sickly reminder of the mercy offered. You stare at the blank parchment before you, pristine and unmarred, awaiting your confession. Your fingers, still holding the warmed cup, feel a subtle tremor, an uncontrollable shiver unrelated to the chamber's chill. The quiet glow from the brazier in the corner, once comforting, now casts flickering shadows that seem to mock the very idea of clarity. The Inquisitor remains perfectly still, his gaze a steady, unwavering force that gently, yet relentlessly presses down. He doesn't speak, doesn't prompt, simply waits. It's a silence not empty, but heavy, with unspoken expectations, the full weight of a system that has already decided your fate. You feel the cool, smooth surface of the cup, then set it down with a soft click that echoes unnaturally loud in the hushed room. You reach for the quill, its freshly sharpened nib poised above the untouched page. What are you to write? To confess truly feels like an invention, a fabrication of sins you don't recognize, but which the Inquisitor's relentless logic has already proven you possess. To confess to the heretical ideas he meticulously outlined, those ideas born from a forbidden book, or from the healer's risky touch, is to sign away your very soul, to acknowledge a spiritual disease you do not believe you carry. But then the alternative, to refuse to deny, is to reject his mercy, to stand defiant. You remember the sterile silence of the cell, the coarse penitence cloth, the endless scholastic arguments that tied your mind into knots. To deny is to invite a return to those experiences, perhaps to something worse, to a path of purification, without the softening balm of repentance. You feel a profound, sickening realization settle over you like a shroud. The choice presented, confession or denial, is no choice at all. Both paths lead to the same destination, a public acknowledgement of guilt, a penance assigned, a life irrevocably altered, framed by the Church's judgment. The parchment, once a symbol of opportunity for salvation, now feels like a prison wall. Your hand hovers. The quill, a feather-light burden, yet it feels as heavy as stone. The illusion of agency, the comforting lie of self-determination, shatters into 1,000 cold pieces. You are merely a hand about to trace a predetermined narrative, a puppet choosing which string to pull, knowing both lead to the same master. In this moment, you understand that the deepest form of control isn't exercised through force, but through the ingenious crafting of a choice that offers no true escape, leaving you with the chilling clarity that even freedom itself can be an illusion, meticulously designed to perpetuate your own subjugation. The air in this quiet chamber is cold, dry, and smells distinctly of old paper and sealing wax, a scent that seems to press against your nose like a physical weight. Your hands, still numb from the chill, hover over a large, heavy sheet of parchment spread flat on the dark, polished oak table before you. It's not a blank page waiting for your confession, nor a complex theological text. This is something else entirely. You lean closer, your breath catching. The parchment is thick, almost brittle with age, the edges frayed in places, but the surface is meticulously drawn. It's a sprawling web of lines and names, carefully penned in ancient, elegant script. You trace a finger along a thick, dark line, a central trunk from which smaller branches extend, then even finer twigs. Each branch leads to a name, a date, perhaps a small, neatly drawn symbol, a crest, a profession. This is your lineage, painstakingly recorded, stretching back through generations, a silent testament to a history you barely knew. The robed figure across the table, always a study in stillness, points with an unnervingly steady finger to a specific cluster of names, a lower branch on this immense tree. You follow their gaze, and a cold knot forms in your stomach. Here, amidst the clear, bold script, are names you vaguely recognize, stories whispered in childhood. But these names are different. They are marked. A faint, almost imperceptible cross, a subtle erasure, or a line that seems to veer away from the main trunk, joining a separate, thinner strand. You feel a profound sense of scrutiny, not just upon yourself, but upon this entire network of ancestors. The purity of each connection, the unbroken line back to some distant, pristine origin, feels critically important. Your eye is drawn to the faint discoloration on one of the marked sections, perhaps a stain, or an older, imperfect correction. It's a tiny blemish, generations removed, yet it pulses with an unexpected gravity, a quiet, almost accusatory presence. The silence in the room deepens. The Inquisitor watches your face, his gaze unflinching, searching for a reaction, for recognition. You feel the immense inherited weight of this document, a burden not of your own making, but bequeathed by those who came before. Your identity, you realize, is not solely defined by your actions or beliefs, but by the very blood that flows through your veins, by the intricate, meticulously recorded history of your family. And in this cold, bureaucratic chamber, even the smallest deviation, the faintest imperfection in that ancient, rigid purity, can cast a long, chilling shadow over your present. Your past, you now understand, is not merely history. It is a living, breathing part of your guilt, capable of condemning you without a single word from your own mouth. The cold, dry parchment of the family tree still lies before you, a sprawling testament to generations. Your fingers instinctively trace a line, a name, but your attention is drawn back to those specific sections the Inquisitor had indicated. Faint marks, subtle discolorations, almost invisible to an untrained eye. It's as if a cold, thin vein of something different runs through your lineage, highlighted now by the unnerving silence of the chamber. The scent of old paper and sealing wax feels heavier, suddenly laden with the weight of generations of untold stories. The Inquisitor, ever still, now merely observes you, his gaze unwavering. He offers no new questions, no complex theological arguments. His silence is more potent than any words, allowing the implications of the marked parchment to fully sink in. You feel a prickle on your skin, an acute awareness of your ancestry, a sudden, visceral understanding that your very blood, your inherited past, is under scrutiny. It's not about what you have done, but what your ancestors might have been asterisk, or what they might have done centuries ago. You remember the whispers in the village, the subtle distinctions. Families who had lived in the region for countless generations, their roots deep and tangled, versus those whose families had arrived more recently, perhaps from distant lands, carrying a different history, a different faith, even after their conversion. You recall the guarded glances, the way certain names were spoken with a peculiar inflection, not quite suspicion, but certainly a distance, a perpetual otherness. Now you feel that otherness acutely, here in this cold room, as if the marked names on the parchment are not just lines of ink, but brands on your very soul. You realize that a lifetime of outward devotion, of conforming to every decree, of participating in every ritual, might mean nothing in the face of a perceived taint in your distant past. It's like wearing a clean, white tunic, only to have a faint, invisible stain beneath, known only to those who examine you with a magnifying glass. You shift on the hard bench, a restless discomfort that runs deeper than any physical ache. The air feels thinner, harder to breathe, as if the very space around you is subtly rejecting your presence based on this ancient, indelible mark. This isn't a battle of ideas or actions, it's a battle of origins, of an inherited identity you cannot change, cannot confess away, cannot argue against. The parchment, once a neutral record, now feels like a prison cell, its lines trapping you within a historical narrative that condemns you before you've even had a chance to speak. The weight of it is immense. You understand, with a chilling clarity, that for some, the greatest struggle is not against their own choices, but against the unyielding shadow of their ancestors. A shadow that dictates their present and future, systematically defining them, forever, by a past they never lived. It is an inescapable inheritance, a quiet, pervasive form of persecution woven into the very fabric of who you are, making you realize that blood, in this world, is far thicker and far more dangerous than water. The ceaseless drip, drip, drip of water is the first thing that truly penetrates the fog in your mind. It's not a gentle patter of rain, but a hollow, resonant sound, echoing off unseen stone, amplifying in the profound darkness that presses against your eyelids. You are submerged in an absolute, suffocating blackness. You can't see your hands, your feet, anything. Only the sound of water. A cold, wet chill has long since seeped into your bones. A constant companion that now feels less like temperature, and more like a physical presence, clinging to every inch of your skin. You are lying on a damp, uneven surface, perhaps cold stone, perhaps packed earth, you can't tell. Your clothes, already thin, cling to you, heavy and sodden. The air you breathe is thick with the smell of stagnant water, raw earth, and a faint metallic tang you dread to identify. The dripping continues, sometimes slow and deliberate, a single drop hitting the surface with a loud, almost mocking splash. Then it might quicken, a rapid, frantic rhythm, before slowing again, tormenting you with its unpredictable cadence. It feels less like water falling from a leak, and more like a deliberate, precise manipulation of sound, designed to unravel the very threads of your sanity. Each drip is a tiny hammer blow against the inside of your skull, chipping away at your resolve, breaking the silence into unbearable fragments. You try to move, to shift your head, to escape the relentless rhythm, but your limbs feel heavy, sluggish, almost bound by the pervasive dampness and the unyielding surface beneath you. The water isn't just dripping. You can hear it gurgling softly nearby, a constant low-level thrum that insinuates itself into every corner of your perception. You feel a faint splash against your cheek, cold and shocking, reminding you of its proximity, its inevitable encroachment. Your mind, desperate for distraction, tries to latch onto other sounds, other sensations, but there are none, only the water. It becomes your entire world, your tormentor, your only constant. You find yourself counting the drops, then losing count, then counting again, caught in a maddening loop. The boundaries between thought and sensation blur. You are no longer merely hearing the water. You are feeling it in your very thoughts, the cold, wet dread seeping into the core of your being. The persuasion isn't in words, or even in overt pain. It's in the relentless monotony, the inescapable presence of this element, twisting a source of life into an instrument of profound psychological discomfort. You realize that sanity itself is a delicate thing, easily eroded not by grand tortures, but by the insidious, unwavering assault of something as simple and ubiquitous as water, steadily chipping away at the fortress of your mind, until your very thoughts begin to echo its maddening, ceaseless rhythm. The ceaseless, monotonous drip, drip that had haunted your mind now abruptly ceases, replaced by a terrifying, immediate rush. A coarse, sodden cloth, reeking of damp earth and stale water, is roughly pressed over your mouth and nose. You instinctively gasp, trying to pull air into your burning lungs, but instead, a torrent of bitter, cold water rushes in, forcing its way down your throat. It's a primal invasion, a violation of your very breath, an overwhelming deluge that fills your mouth, floods your sinuses, and chokes you from the inside out. Your chest convulses, muscles screaming in a desperate, futile attempt to push the water back, to draw in the precious air now denied to you. Your vision is still consumed by absolute darkness, but now it's punctuated by flashing bursts of light behind your eyelids, the frantic signals of a body starved for oxygen. Your limbs thrash wildly, tied, you realize, to an unseen rack, pulling against unseen bonds that bite into your wrists and ankles, tearing at your skin. The cold, wet surface beneath you becomes a slick, indifferent enemy. The metallic taste of the water mixes with the rising bile in your throat, a nauseating combination that intensifies the panic. You are drowning, not in a vast ocean, but in a controlled, agonizingly slow application of liquid. Through the deafening roar of water in your ears, through the terrifying throbbing in your temples, you faintly perceive muffled sounds, low, steady voices, not raised in anger, but speaking in calm, dispassionate tones. The rhythmic, distant scratching of a quill against parchment, still there, relentless, an echo of the silent scribe. There's no frenzy here, no wild sadism. This isn't random violence. This is precise. This is measured. This is legal. A profound, sickening jolt runs through your entire being, a shock that freezes your blood in your veins even as your body fights for life. You, from your modern perspective, recognize this instantly, viscerally, as torture. It is an abhorrent, unspeakable act. Yet the unhurried movements of the robed figures around you, their detached observations, the meticulous record-keeping, all scream a different truth. To them, in this time, within this system, this is a legitimate, even necessary tool. It's a method of persuasion, a way to purify, a confession, to guide, a soul to a truth it supposedly denies. The sheer, terrifying chasm between your intrinsic understanding of humanity and their sanctioned cruelty is a revelation more agonizing than the water itself. Your modern sensibilities recoil, screaming against the calculated indifference, the absolute violation of your body. The indignity of your struggle is compounded by the chilling knowledge that this horror is not an aberration, but a carefully integrated, legally justified component of their quest for divine order. You understand that the boundaries of justice and atrocity are frighteningly fluid across time, and here, in this dark, water-filled chamber, your very sense of right and wrong is being erased by a horrifyingly rationalized brutality. The scent of freshly starched linen and old, clean wood fills your lungs, a stark contrast to the stale air you've grown used to. You stand in a doorway, unnoticed, in a different kind of quiet room. It's not a cell, not an interrogation chamber, but a private study, austere and uncluttered. A single lamp burns steadily on a simple wooden desk, casting a soft, unwavering pool of light, highlighting dust motes dancing in the cool air. The Inquisitor sits there, not looming behind a table, but hunched over a heavy ledger, his back to you. His dark robes, though plain, are immaculately clean, their folds falling with a precise, almost architectural gravity. You observe his movements. Each action is economical, deliberate. He lifts a sheet of parchment, thin and brittle, and aligns it with painstaking accuracy against a larger, more permanent page in the ledger. His fingers, long and slender, move with a practiced grace, devoid of any unnecessary flourish. They are the hands of a scholar, a craftsman, dedicated to meticulous order. He dips his quill into a small, dark ink pot, its surface undisturbed, then presses it to the page. The faint, rhythmic scratch of the nib is the only sound that truly breaks the profound silence. A familiar sound, but here it carries a new significance. It's the sound of information being transferred, of lives being reduced to entries, of a vast unseen machine meticulously turning. His head is bowed, his concentration absolute, his profile sharp against the dim light. You notice a small, simple crucifix, carved from dark wood, resting on the edge of the ledger, almost tucked away, but clearly handled often, its surface worn smooth. He touches it briefly, a faint, almost imperceptible gesture, before returning to his work, his gaze unwavering. There is no visible emotion, no hint of malice or triumph in his posture, just an unrelenting focus, a profound sense of duty radiating from him like a palpable force. You realize he isn't a monster of passion, but a tireless instrument of a system, propelled by an unwavering faith. His piety is etched, not in grand displays, but in the disciplined precision of his daily tasks, in the stark order of his surroundings. in the relentless pursuit of what he perceives as divine truth. The air around him feels charged with this quiet, unwavering conviction. You understand with a chilling clarity that the most terrifying cruelty isn't always born of malice, but can arise from the most sincere, most disciplined dedication to a cause, however righteous it might appear to its proponents. His very composure, his meticulous devotion to an abstract ideal, is a profound, unsettling power. The soft, dry click of the heavy leather-bound ledger closing echoes disproportionately loud in the quiet study, a sound of finality that makes you flinch slightly. The air still smells of old paper and beeswax clinging to your senses. The Inquisitor, who has been hunched over his work for what feels like an eternity, slowly leans back in his chair. It's a subtle movement, not one of aggression or power, but a simple, almost imperceptible stretch, as if releasing a long-held tension in his shoulders. For a brief, unguarded moment, his head tilts slightly, and one of his slender, ink-stained fingers rises to rub gently at his temple, then presses briefly against his closed eyelids. You catch a fleeting glimpse of the lines etched around his eyes, not from malice, but from long hours of intense concentration, a pervasive weariness that is startlingly familiar. It's a gesture you've seen countless times in your own life, in yourself, in your neighbor after a long day in the fields, in the tired eyes of a scholar wrestling with a difficult text. It's a small, intimate, utterly human gesture of fatigue. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, the moment passes. His hand drops, his posture straightens, and his eyes, clear and calm as ever, open. He doesn't look at you, his gaze sweeping across the organized chaos of his desk, the neat stacks of parchment, the array of quills, the small, dark ink pot. You see him reach for a small, plain cup, lift it to his lips, and take a slow, deliberate sip of water, the movement as precise and unadorned as his earlier calligraphy. There's no hurried gulp, no sign of desperation, just a measured act of sustenance. There's no shift in his expression, no hint of a thought beyond the immediate task. Yet the image of that subtle stretch, that rub of weary eyes, lingers. This is the man who meticulously processed the anonymous denunciations, who navigated the labyrinthine logic of scholastic interrogation, whose hand signed the confiscation decrees, whose presence sanctioned the persuasion of water. He is not a roaring tyrant, not a frothing fanatic. He is simply a man, performing his duties with quiet, unwavering diligence, methodical, even pious, in his pursuit of order. A chilling realization settles over you, heavier than any stone in this building. The greatest horrors, you now understand, are not always perpetrated by overt monsters. They are often the work of ordinary, fallible human beings, driven by sincere conviction, by a profound sense of duty, by a quiet, unwavering dedication to a system they believe in. The unsettling humanity of his fatigue, his simple need for water, juxtaposed with the immense, devastating power he wields, creates a profound and terrifying dissonance. It makes you realize that true evil doesn't always wear a monstrous face. Sometimes, it wears the composed, weary face of an ordinary man, diligently performing his work, believing it to be righteous. The air is different here, not musty or damp, but cold and surprisingly cavernous, carrying the faint, lingering scent of old incense and something else. A thin, almost metallic echo, as if sound itself struggles to survive. You step through a massive arched doorway, its dark wood worn smooth by centuries of hands, and your boots scuff softly on the cold, polished stone floor. The sound seems to vanish upwards, swallowed by the sheer volume of the space. Your gaze travels upward, tracing the immense, soaring arches of the vaulted ceiling, lost in the gloom high above. The walls are not simply stone. They are intricately carved, adorned with countless figures, saints, biblical scenes, all rendered in muted, ancient colors that barely catch the sparse light. Each detail is designed to overwhelm, to dwarf the human scale, to inspire awe and humility. You feel a profound sense of diminishment, a tiny speck within this vast echoing testament to immutable power. Your eyes sweep across the room. At the far end, raised on a dais of polished stone, sits a long, heavy table, draped in dark embroidered cloth. Behind it, a row of high-backed chairs, carved with solemn, intricate patterns, stands empty for now. But their very emptiness resonates with an immense, silent authority. You imagine the robed figures, the inquisitors, seated there, their combined presence filling this already colossal space. The light sources are few. Tall, slender candles flicker in distant sconces, their tiny flames struggling against the overwhelming darkness. High above, narrow lancet windows, deeply set into the stone, admit only slivers of diffused gray light, doing little to illuminate the vastness. Everything is designed to elevate, to separate, to make the spiritual power of the institution feel tangible and immense, while rendering the individual insignificant. You walk slowly across the cold floor, your footsteps barely audible, feeling the sheer, unyielding solidity of the construction beneath your feet. The air hums with a deep, silent resonance, a perpetual echo of countless pronouncements, confessions, and judgments that have transpired within these walls. You reach out, your fingers brushing against a cold, carved pillar, feeling the ancient, rough texture of the stone. It is not merely a building. It is a meticulously constructed stage, designed to amplify power, to imbue every word spoken within it with the weight of eternity. This architecture isn't about comfort or accessibility. It's about declaration, about dominance, about making you feel the immense, unshakable presence of a higher authority. You realize that sometimes the most terrifying display of power isn't in overt force, but in the sheer, hollow grandeur of structures designed to humble the individual, to make your own voice seem impossibly small, and your resistance utterly futile. Against the backdrop of such unyielding, eternal stone, the cavernous air in this tribunal chamber isn't merely cold. It's a suffocating chill that seems to press in on your chest, stealing the warmth from your very core. The faint, metallic echo that clings to the space now feels less like sound struggling and more like the lingering essence of despair. You stand amidst the immense, soaring arches, the intricately carved walls, and your own physical presence shrinks to insignificance. Every line, every carved saint, every shadowed recess seems to watch you with a silent, judging gaze. Your gaze instinctively strains upward, trying to pierce the gloom of the vaulted ceiling. It feels impossibly high, a distant, unreachable heaven that mocks your earthly struggles. The height isn't just a measure of distance. It's a measure of power, designed to make your own voice, your own thoughts, seem utterly inconsequential against the vast, cold indifference of the stone. The flickering candlelight from distant sconces barely scratches the surface of the profound darkness, leaving most of the monumental space in an oppressive shadow that seems to absorb all hope, all defiance. Your footsteps, though barely audible on the polished stone, feel disproportionately loud in the pervasive silence. It's not an empty silence, but a heavy, charged vacuum that amplifies the frantic thrum of your own heart. The sudden dryness in your throat, the slight tremble in your knees. This isn't a space for conversation or comfortable gathering. It's a crucible, designed to isolate, to intimidate, to make you acutely aware of your vulnerability. The cold, unyielding stone of the floor beneath your feet is a constant, tangible reminder of the immutable, unshakable authority that constructed this edifice. You feel a profound sense of exposure, as if every secret thought, every moment of doubt, is laid bare by the sheer, unblinking presence of these walls. The carved figures, once simply decoration, now feel like a silent jury, their ancient faces impassive, their judgment eternal. You want to shrink, to disappear into the shadows, but the sheer scale of the room leaves no place to hide, no corner where your spirit can find refuge. This architecture doesn't just house power. It is, too, power. It weaponizes space, light, and silence to exert a profound psychological grip. Every vast expanse, every distant shadow, every echoing silence is a deliberate stroke in a masterful intimidation. It's designed to make you question your own worth, your own truth, to feel utterly alone and exposed against the backdrop of an eternal, unyielding institution. You realize, with a chilling clarity, that these stones aren't just walls and arches. They are a silent, masterful tormentor, meticulously crafted to break the spirit before a single word of accusation is even spoken. The rough, gritty feel of old mortar dust against your palms, mingled with the faint, sharp scent of cheap lye soap, is your constant companion. You are sweeping a long, shadowed corridor, the stiff bristles of the broom rasping a repetitive, almost meditative rhythm against the cold, uneven flagstones. The air is still, heavy with the enduring chill of the massive stone walls, a silent witness to countless footsteps, countless secrets. Your eyes, accustomed to the dimness, scan the floor, searching for any stray debris, a task that has become as automatic as breathing. Your gaze idly lifts, tracing the worn ancient stone blocks that form the base of the wall. They're smooth in places, pitted in others, carrying the marks of centuries. But then, a subtle anomaly catches your eye. Not a natural flaw in the stone, nor a common mason's mark. It's a series of faint, almost imperceptible lines, carved low to the ground, partially obscured by generations of dust and the wear of feet. You pause, the broom handle resting against your shoulder, a sudden prickle of curiosity overriding your usual dull compliance. You lean closer, your breath held, your heart beginning a slow, heavy thump against your ribs. The lines are delicate, shallowly incised, but as your vision sharpens in the gloom, a distinct shape begins to emerge. It's a small, stylized fish, crude perhaps to an unseeing eye, but unmistakable. Its tail curves gracefully upwards, its mouth a tiny open circle, carved with a quiet, enduring defiance. Your fingertips, still gritty from the dust, instinctively reach out, tracing the cool, hard surface of the stone, following the faint outline of the symbol. The sensation is startling. Not just the cold of the rock, but a sudden, profound warmth that floods your veins, a shock of recognition that vibrates through your entire being. You've seen this before, or heard of it, in hushed whispers, in old stories told near fading embers, a symbol of those who held a different truth, a different hope. In the face of overwhelming pressure, a profound silence descends, deeper than the usual quiet of the building. The very air seems to thicken with the weight of this secret, hidden in plain sight. You feel a wave of fear, cold and sharp, at the profound danger represented by such a mark within these walls, within this institution that seeks to standardize every thought, every belief. But beneath the fear, a different sensation stirs, a tiny, stubborn ember of connection, a sense of shared resilience, a silent solidarity with unseen hands that once dared to carve this small, enduring sign. You quickly straighten, resuming your sweeping, letting the broom's rasping sound cover the sudden, frantic beat of your heart. The dust you kick up momentarily obscures the symbol, a natural cloak against prying eyes. Yet, the feel of that carved fish remains etched on your fingertips, a silent message vibrating through the cold stone, a testament to the enduring power of a single, hidden symbol. You understand that even in the most oppressive darkness, where grand gestures are impossible, the quiet, tenacious act of encoding a forbidden hope, of leaving a tiny, defiant mark, can sustain a spirit, creating a fragile, powerful network of unseen resistance, a subtle testament to the human spirit's stubborn refusal to be entirely silenced. The persistent, rhythmic drag of your worn boot sole against the cold, uneven flagstones is the loudest sound in the vast, echoing corridor. It's a mundane sound, yet for you, it has become a rhythm of careful vigilance. Your hands, calloused and numb from the endless sweeping, still feel the phantom impression of that tiny carved fish on the stone wall. That silent ember of defiance, once a discovery, now burns with a quiet, insistent heat in your mind, transforming how you perceive this place and yourself. You are no longer merely performing a task, you are a sentry. Your eyes, now sharpened by this new awareness, sweep the long, shadowed stretches of stone, not just for dust, but for other whispers, other tiny fissures in the monolithic order. The air, heavy with the ingrained chill of the building, seems to press against your senses, urging caution, even as a newfound energy pulses beneath your weariness. As you near a particularly dark alcove, a slight movement in the deep shadow catches your eye. It's barely perceptible, a fleeting flicker. You pause, letting the broom rest against the wall with a soft, dull scrape. A figure, hunched in the gloom, is quickly tucking something small and dark into a loose stone in the wall. Their movements are swift, practiced, almost invisible. You see only the fleeting curve of a hand, the quick disappearance of the object, then the slow, deliberate straightening of their body, a return to absolute stillness. Their face remains obscured, but you feel a jolt of recognition, a silent, powerful current passing between you and this unknown confederate. It's not a gaze of fear, but of profound, shared understanding. You quickly resume your sweeping, the rasp of the bristles covering any sound of their silent retreat. Your heart thumps a frantic rhythm against your ribs, a drumbeat of adrenaline and something else, a fierce, quiet solidarity. You glide past the spot, not looking directly, but your peripheral vision takes in the almost perfect fit of the stone, the faint scrape marks where it must have been removed countless times. The air in that small, shadowed space feels suddenly charged, almost electric with the presence of that hidden object, whatever it might be, a dried herb, a scrap of ink-stained cloth, a hastily scrawled message, a tiny forbidden trinket. Later, as you carry a bucket of stale slops through a narrow, damp passage, you brush past another worker, their head bowed, their movements slow. As you pass, your rough tunic briefly catches theirs. You feel a distinct, deliberate pressure against your palm, something small and hard being subtly transferred into your hand. You don't look, don't react. Simply continue your path, your fingers closing instinctively around the object. It's a dry, hard crust of bread, hardened almost to stone, but undeniably food, undeniably a small act of mercy, a stolen morsel. The taste of it later, concealed in your mouth, is not just stale bread. It's the fierce, bitter taste of shared defiance, a testament to an unseen network of humanity that persists even in the cold heart of an uncompromising institution. You realize that these are the true acts of resistance, not grand speeches or open rebellion, but these minute, silent gestures, these hidden symbols, these shared crumbs of humanity passed in the shadows. They are small, almost invisible threads, weaving a fragile but persistent tapestry of connection and defiance against the immense unyielding force that seeks to control every thought, every movement. You understand that the human spirit, even when faced with an unstoppable power, finds a way to assert itself, to create tiny, powerful moments of choice, reminding you that true freedom often resides in the quiet, desperate acts that affirm your own stubborn, unyielding existence. You feel the coarse rope tighten around your wrists, not with a sudden jerk, but with a slow, deliberate pressure that bites into your already chafed skin. The cold, damp air of the stone passage clings to you, a familiar chill. You've been here before, it seems, moving between one shadowed chamber and the next, each one colder, less welcoming than the last. But this time, something feels profoundly different. You are standing in a small, cramped antechamber, lit by a single flickering torch that casts long, dancing shadows, distorting the faces of the figures around you. On one side, cloaked figures in dark ecclesiastical robes stand still, their faces obscured, their presence a silent, grave judgment. On the other, a group of men in simpler, rougher tunics, their faces hardened, their hands resting on the hilts of crude knives or the shafts of staffs. Their presence is immediate, physical, almost predatory. The air smells of damp earth, and the faint, acrid tang of unwashed leather from their gear. A voice cuts through the silence, not the calm, measured tone of the Inquisitor you remember, but a different cleric, his voice formal, resonant with Latin pronouncements. You don't grasp every word, but the rhythm is clear, the phrases distinct. He speaks of relinquishing, of vitae, committing, of the secular arm. He makes clear that the Church, in its mercy, has completed its spiritual duty, and now your earthly body, purged of its spiritual error, is to be delivered to another jurisdiction. The Church, he states, does not spill blood. You feel a subtle shift, a physical transfer of oversight. The robed figures step back, their movement almost imperceptible, leaving a space between you and them. Then, the rough hands of the secular guards grasp your arms, their grip firm, unyielding, pulling you forward. Their touch is different, less formal, more direct, entirely without the subtle, intellectual menace of the ecclesiastical presence. It's a harsh, immediate reality. You feel the cold metal of a manacle being clamped around one wrist, a dull clink that rings unnaturally loud in the small space. You glance between the two groups. The robed clerics watch with impassive faces, their hands clasped, their eyes betraying no emotion, as if observing a necessary, administrative formality. The guards, however, look at you with a stark, cold efficiency, their eyes devoid of the theological complexity you have become accustomed to. For them, it is a simple matter of charge and custody. You are no longer a soul in need of salvation, but a body awaiting earthly justice. The chill that runs through you now is not just from the stone, but from the horrifying clarity of this distinction. You realize that the Church, by carefully delineating its role, manages to maintain its image of spiritual purity, while effectively condemning you to a brutal, physical fate. The legalistic separation of powers, you understand, is not a shield for the accused, but a convenient veil for the system itself, allowing each arm to wash its hands of the other's consequences, leaving you caught in the brutal space between. A sudden, jarring shift. The cold, damp stone of the passage abruptly gives way to a raw, open gust of air that hits your face like a physical blow. But it's not just cold. It's thick, acrid, laden with a choking smell of burning wood, of resin and pitch, already clinging to the air like a shroud. Your lungs protest, recoiling from the harsh, biting odor that scrapes your throat. The rough hands of the guards, now gripping your arms with an unyielding force, propel you forward, away from the relative gloom of the building, and into a bright, blinding light. You squint, your eyes struggling to adjust. You're in another square, but this is different. This isn't the theater of public penance. This is a space of stark, terrible finality. A low, murmuring roar rises from a vast crowd, a sound like a distant, agitated ocean, but it feels strangely hushed, expectant. You feel the rough, uneven cobblestones beneath your bare feet, each step jarring, a physical reminder of your rapid, irreversible journey. Your gaze is drawn, inexorably, to the center of the square. There, dominating the space, stands a pyre. It's a crude, terrifying monument of stacked logs and kindling, rough-hewn and ominous. A dark, hungry maw awaiting its offering. A thin, sickly plume of dark smoke already curls lazily upwards from its base, catching the pale, indifferent light of the sky. The heat radiating from it is not the distant warmth of a hearth, but a palpable, intense presence that prickles your skin, a foretaste of the inferno to come. You can feel its hungry breath even from this distance, a dry, scorching wave that makes your eyes water. You are shoved closer, the manacles on your wrists clinking softly. A sound utterly dwarfed by the roaring silence of the crowd and the low, crackling hunger of the wood. You feel the rough hands of the guards on your back, pushing, guiding you towards the base of the pyre. There are no robed figures from the church here now, no precise, scholarly inquisitors. Only the stoic, hardened faces of the secular arm, their movements efficient, devoid of any pretense of spiritual concern. Their purpose is purely physical, relentlessly focused on the mechanics of this brutal ritual. You catch glimpses of faces in the crowd as you are pushed along, a sea of silent, watchful eyes. Some are wide with morbid curiosity, others are grim, their expressions etched with a fearful piety, but all are fixed on you, on the pyre. You feel the terrible, absolute finality of this moment. All the precise arguments, the bureaucratic entries, the careful distinctions between spiritual and temporal authority, all collapse into the raw, visceral reality of heat and smoke. The cold calculations of judgment, the subtle art of persuasion, now yield to the undeniable, irreversible truth of the flames. You realize with a chilling, heartbreaking clarity that no matter the intricate legal frameworks, no matter the pious justifications, no matter the careful distancing of the church, the ultimate truth is a scorching, undeniable physical end. And in this moment, as the heat begins to truly bite, you understand that some endings are utterly absolute, leaving nothing but ash and a profound, terrifying silence where a life once stood. The faint, persistent smell of stew, thick with root vegetables and a little salt pork, fills the small, dim room. It's usually a comforting aroma, a promise of warmth in the perpetually cold air, but tonight it hangs heavy and inert, almost suffocating. Your stomach clenches, not with hunger, but with a familiar, dull ache that has become a constant companion. You sit on a worn wooden bench, its surface smooth from countless meals, its familiar grain now feeling strangely alien beneath your fingers. A single sputtering tallow candle on the table casts long, dancing shadows, making the familiar faces around you seem distorted, almost spectral. They are your family, yet their eyes are averted, their shoulders hunched, their movements slow and deliberate. The table, usually a vibrant hub of conversation and clattering bowls, is shrouded in a profound, unnatural silence. The only sounds are the soft, almost apologetic scrape of a spoon against earthenware, and the distant, muffled bark of a dog from the village outside, sounds that feel incredibly distant, as if from another world. Your gaze drifts, inexorably, to the empty space across from you. A chair, placed as always, but now tragically vacant. A wooden bowl sits before it, untouched, a thin layer of steam rising from its surface, cooling rapidly in the chilled air. No one reaches for it. No one acknowledges its presence directly, yet its absence, or rather, the absence it represents, is the most powerful presence in the room. It's a gaping hole, a void around which all other life now reluctantly constellates. You watch your mother, her hands, usually quick and efficient, now move with painful slowness as she stirs her own bowl. Her eyes are fixed on the contents, never lifting, never meeting another gaze. Your younger sister picks at her food, pushing a piece of turnip around with her spoon, her face pale and drawn, her usual childish chatter replaced by a strained, unwavering quiet. No one urges her to eat. No one speaks of the empty chair. No one utters the name, but the silence screams it, fills every corner of the room with its heavy, undeniable truth. The air itself feels thick with unspoken grief and a pervasive, insidious fear. It's not just the sorrow of loss. It's the burning shame, the quiet ostracization that has settled over your home like a physical shroud. You feel the subtle, yet potent, pressure from the world outside, from the villagers whose glances now hold a wary distance, from the unseen forces that have stripped this family of one of its own. The warmth from the candle does little to dispel the profound chill that penetrates to your very soul. You realize that sometimes the true weight of judgment isn't carried by the condemned, but by those left behind, forced to live in the echoing void of absence, marked by a sorrow that dares not speak its name. The empty chair, you understand, is not merely a space. It is a permanent, silent testament to the enduring, devastating reach of an unforgiving world. A chilling reminder that some absences are heavier than any presence. The lingering scent of that thin, tasteless stew, now completely cold, seems to cling to the walls of your home like a shroud. You feel the rough, unyielding floorboards beneath your bare feet, not just cold, but strangely hollow, as if the warmth of generations has been systematically leached out. Every surface you touch feels stark, unadorned. The few pieces of furniture that remain are chipped, makeshift, showing signs of frantic repair, or simply being left untouched for too long, devoid of the familiar polish and care. Your gaze travels across the small familiar room, and you see not just objects but absences. The warm, inviting wool rug that once covered the central floor is gone, leaving a cold, dusty expanse. The heavy wooden chest, a repository of family linens and small valuables, is nowhere to be seen, replaced by an empty space that echoes with silence. The tools that once hung neatly by the hearth, passed down from your father, are missing, leaving behind only the dark, ghost-like outlines where they used to be. Each void in the room is a physical manifestation of loss, a stark, tangible reminder of what has been stripped away. You watch your younger sister, her small hands, usually busy with a doll or a piece of fabric, now rest idly in her lap. Her eyes, once bright with childish curiosity, are dulled, reflecting the pervasive weariness that has settled over the entire household. She doesn't play outside with the other children anymore. Their mothers, draw them back, their faces tight with a mixture of fear and judgment. The warmth and easy laughter that once filled these walls have been replaced by a cautious, hushed existence, a perpetual state of quiet survival. You feel the constant knot in your stomach, not just from the meager meals, but from the immense invisible weight of it all. It's the burden of expectation, the awareness that the confiscation wasn't just about property, it was about the future. The small parcel of land, the meager savings, the reputation that allowed for trade and honest work, all gone. You understand that your path forward is no longer clear, that the opportunities that might have been yours are now closed, sealed by the invisible mark of infamy. Even the sunlight, when it finally filters weakly through the small window, feels different. It illuminates the dust motes dancing in the stale air, highlighting the pervasive bareness, the irrefutable evidence of a life diminished. You reach out, your fingers tracing the cold wood of the table, and feel not just the grain, but the profound weight of a lost legacy. You realize with a chilling clarity that the Inquisition's judgment, its systematic dismantling of a life, doesn't end with the accused. It casts a long, chilling shadow over generations, stripping away not just possessions but dignity, opportunity, and the very fabric of a family's future, leaving behind only the cold, unyielding burden of inherited shame and a profound, aching emptiness that may never truly be filled. A faint, dry scent, like powdered thyme, fills your nostrils. It's the unmistakable aroma of old paper, leather, and dust, clinging to the air in soft, invisible motes. You breathe it in, and it feels like inhaling centuries, a quiet, almost reverent perfume that immediately transports you. You're not in a medieval chamber now, but in a vast, hushed archive. Countless rows of silent shelves receding into the shadows around you. The light is dim here, a single, focused lamp casting a yellow glow on the heavy wooden table before you. It illuminates the swirling, faded ink of an ancient hand on the page you're examining. The air, though not cold in the punishing way of a medieval winter, holds a cool, steady stillness, disturbed only by the gentle hum of your own breath and the subtle shift of old paper. You reach out, your fingers, surprisingly steady, brush against the brittle edge of a heavy parchment. It crinkles softly, a dry, papery whisper centuries old, like a ghost sighing. You carefully lift the sheet, feeling the fragile texture, the faint roughness where the ink has almost become one with the fiber. This isn't the crisp, new vellum of the scribe's desk, nor the rough, urgent paper of an anonymous denunciation. This is history, tangible and delicate, held in your very hands. You open an enormous ledger, its thick, leather-bound cover groaning softly with the weight of years, resisting your touch for a moment before yielding. The pages, yellowed and fragile, reveal row upon row of precise Latin script, meticulously penned. Your eyes scan the careful entries, the formal language, the detailed accounts. You see names, dates, charges, verdicts. You find a familiar name, a family, tracing its lineage, finding the marks of condemnation, the careful accounting of confiscated goods. The impersonal bureaucracy of the past, once an overwhelming experience, now becomes palpable in this quiet academic space, resurrected by the deliberate act of your gaze. Each rustle of parchment as you turn a page is a ghost's breath, a tiny echo of forgotten suffering, now resurrected by your touch. The faint outlines of official seals, faded with time, still hint at their undeniable authority, even though the hands that pressed them are long since dust. You feel a profound connection, a tangible link across hundreds of years, as you sift through these enduring fragments of lives lived and judged. The meticulousness, the dedication to record, is unsettling. You realize that these documents aren't just remnants of a distant past. They are persistent witnesses, silent testaments to the quiet, systematic power that once held sway. They endure long after the voices have fallen silent, long after the fires have cooled, long after the initial fervor has faded. The sheer physical persistence of these records, holding within them the echoes of profound human struggle, makes you understand that history isn't just a story told and retold. It is a persistent physical presence, waiting for someone to listen. A chilling reminder of how enduring the echoes of human judgment can be, even across the vast, silent expanse of centuries. The faint, dry scent of old paper and dust, centuries deep, still clings to your nostrils, a subtle reminder of the vast, silent archive surrounding you. You sit, hunched over a heavy, leather-bound ledger, its pages brittle beneath your touch, illuminated by the single, focused lamp. Your fingers, strangely numb yet acutely aware, trace a line of meticulous Latin script, a record of a life flattened into text. Here, an entry reads, "Item, 1 wooden spoon, common," and in that instant, the cool, dry archival air is replaced by the biting cold of a medieval cell, and you taste the stale, gritty bread, feel its harsh rasp against your tongue, the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. The precise script notes, "Accusation from Thomas, Cooper of the village," and suddenly you hear the muffled, familiar cadence of his voice through a thick door, not comforting, but weaving a web of betrayal, tearing at the fabric of your world. Your eyes scan another entry, condemned for deviation from doctrine, and the vast, hollow grandeur of the tribunal chamber rises around you, dwarfing your spirit, the sheer, unyielding stone pressing in on your chest, making your own voice impossibly small. The paper before you states, with chilling brevity, relinquished to the secular arm. And the acrid, choking smell of burning pitch assaults your lungs. The searing heat of the pyre pricks your skin. The roaring silence of the crowd a physical blow. You feel the rough, unyielding grip of the guards on your arm, propelling you towards the impossible finality of the flames. The pages of the ledger list, in unflinching detail, the confiscated possessions, lands and dwelling, one wool cloak, iron keys, and you are back in the cold, empty home, seeing the ghost outlines of missing tools, feeling the hollow space where the family chest once stood. You see your younger sister's dulled eyes, the profound, aching silence of the empty chair at the table, a testament to an inheritance lost, a future stolen. You touch a faded, intricate seal at the bottom of a decree, its wax, cool and inert beneath your thumb. This simple mark, recorded here in the past, now sparks a memory of that relentless, measured drip, drip, drip of water, twisting a source of life into an instrument of profound psychological invasion, your body fighting for breath, thrashing against unseen bonds in suffocating darkness. The calculated calm of the Inquisitor's voice, turning reason into a labyrinth with no exit, contrasts with the utter, raw panic you remember. The meticulousness of these records is astonishing, terrifying. Every charge, every confession, every verdict, every detail of a life meticulously stripped away and accounted for, all reduced to dry ink on brittle parchment. Yet holding these documents, you realize they are merely shadows, flat echoes of a vibrant, burning reality that, for you, feels as visceral as if it were happening now. The profound, heartbreaking distance between these dry records and the burning reality of lives destroyed is immense. It forces you to grasp that the true horror of such systems isn't always in their overt violence, but in their capacity to meticulously, dispassionately, and permanently erase the vibrant, messy truth of human experience, reducing suffering to mere administrative facts, a chilling testament to the enduring power of bureaucracy to sanitize atrocity. A sudden, surprising weight presses into your open hand, solid and cool. It's a book, but unlike the elaborate, heavy tomes of scholastic debate, or the brittle records of past judgments, this is a compact, leather-bound volume, surprisingly dense, its dry, stiff cover responding with a faint, almost reluctant creak as your fingers curl around it. The air around you, in this small, quiet study, smells of aged leather and a faint, almost medicinal tang, a dry scent that seems to cling to your nostrils like fine dust. You settle into a plain wooden chair, its surface smooth and cold beneath you. The Inquisitor sits across from a heavy, polished oak desk, his presence as silent and watchful as ever, his calm gaze fixed on you. He doesn't speak, doesn't gesture, merely waits, leaving you to the silent authority of the book in your hands. You open it. The pages, though not brittle, are stiff, turning with a dry, papery rustle, each sound a tiny echo in the hushed room. The script within is uniform, precise, small, and tightly packed, filling the pages from margin to margin. There are no illustrations, no ornamentation, no flourishes. Just an endless, unwavering stream of meticulously ordered text, written in a formal, unambiguous Latin. This is a manual, you realize, a guide, the Liber Sententiarum, or perhaps a portion of it. The book of sentences. Your eyes scan the headings, the numbered paragraphs, the subsections. It's all here. the exact process for receiving a denunciation, the protocol for initial inquiries, the prescribed waiting periods, the accepted methods of persuasion, the categories of confession, the specific types of penance, the precise legal steps for confiscation, the detailed distinctions between spiritual and secular jurisdiction. Every possible scenario seems accounted for, every step carefully delineated, every outcome preordained within these pages. It is a complete, self-contained universe of procedure. You feel the inherent coldness of it all. Not the physical chill of a winter morning, but an intellectual, emotional chill. There's no room for improvisation, no space for individual context, no allowance for the messy, unpredictable nuances of human experience. Lives are reduced to cases, beliefs to categories, suffering to a predictable consequence within this meticulously structured framework. The language is absolute, devoid of doubt, as unyielding as the stone walls that surround you. It's a system designed to function with perfect, unswerving logic. Its gears turning without emotion, without hesitation, without exception. You glance up, catching the Inquisitor's unwavering gaze. There's no anger, no triumph, no malice in his eyes. Merely the calm, profound conviction of a man utterly dedicated to the perfect application of these rules. He is not the author of this chilling logic, but its devoted servant. You realize, with a profound and unsettling clarity, that this is the true chill of the Inquisition, not the heat of the pyre, nor the cold of the cell, but the dispassionate, unfeeling rigor of a system that codified human suffering into a set of perfectly logical, perfectly applied procedures, making its horrors not a burst of savage cruelty, but the chillingly inevitable outcome of an absolute, unwavering adherence to its own internal, unchallengeable truth. The dry, stiff leather of the rulebook still feels cool and unyielding in your hands, its tightly packed script an endless, intricate tapestry of procedure. The air in the quiet study, sharp with the scent of aged paper and fine dust, seems to hum with the unwavering logic contained within those pages. You look from the text, with its dispassionate categorization of human error and suffering, to the Inquisitor, who sits across the heavy oak desk, his gaze still calm, his posture a testament to unwavering conviction. He hasn't moved, hasn't spoken. His presence is a quiet echo of the book's absolute authority. You feel a profound, chilling connection between the meticulous order on the page and the precise, systematic dismantling of lives you have witnessed. The rough scratch of the quill on parchment, the methodical cataloging of confiscated possessions, the calm, uninflected questions, the calculated mercy of a forced confession. All these acts, once experienced as distinct torments, now coalesce into a single, terrifying pattern, perfectly outlined in the book you hold. You recall the taste of stale bread in the cell, the gnawing ache in your stomach, and realize that even that suffering was implicitly sanctioned, a part of the spiritual purification outlined in some theological text, echoed in the droning Latin lectures. The shock of water filling your lungs, the desperate physical battle for breath, that too was not random cruelty, but a persuasion, method, a step on a legally defined path, recorded with the same meticulous hand that penned these very rules. You feel a cold dread creep into your soul, not because of a sudden act of violence, but because of its methodical, almost sacred justification. The Inquisitor's unwavering gaze holds no malice, no joy in suffering, It holds only the serene, unshakable certainty of a man who believes himself to be an instrument of divine will, perfectly adhering to a perfect system. His conviction is absolute, pure, distilled to its most potent form, and it is precisely that purity, when divorced from any discernible warmth of human compassion, that makes him so terrifyingly effective. The air thickens with this understanding. You see how a profound belief, a desperate desire for order and salvation, can be meticulously codified into a rigid, unbending structure. And within that structure, every human plea, every individual nuance, every cry of suffering becomes merely another data point, another deviation from the prescribed path. The precision, the order, the absolute adherence to the rules. These are not weaknesses. They are the very source of its unstoppable, horrifying power. You close the book with a soft, dry thud, its contents echoing in your mind. You realize, with a heavy heart, that the most perilous conviction isn't found in the passionate zeal of a fanatic, but in the cold, dispassionate certainty of a bureaucracy that believes itself righteous, and in the unwavering devotion of those who serve it without question. It's the chilling truth that when absolute conviction is allowed to flourish unchecked by the softening touch of compassion, even the purest intentions can pave the most brutal roads, transforming men into cogs, and human lives into mere procedures. The artificial glow of a screen bathes your face in a cool blue light, a stark contrast to the medieval gloom you've known. The air around you, though free from the smell of damp stone or old parchment, carries the faint, sterile scent of ozone and warm electronics. You're not bound by manacles, but your hands are fixed, almost hypnotically, on a smooth, cold surface, scrolling. Your thumb moves with an almost unconscious rhythm, pulling down, down, down through an endless cascade of images and words. A different kind of hum fills your ears now. Not the rhythmic scratch of a quill, but the low, continuous whir of unseen fans, the distant drone of traffic outside your window, and a cacophony of digital pings and notifications that incessantly pull at your attention. Each sound, though small, feels insistent, a constant demand for your engagement, a subtle echo of the relentless dripping in the dark cell. Your eyes dart across headlines, across snippets of text, across sharp declarative statements, opinions, facts, accusations, judgments. They flash before you, a relentless torrent. Here, a post condemning an individual for an old comment. There, a group demanding strict adherence to a specific belief system, threatening ostracization for dissent. You feel a prickle of anxiety at the speed, the sheer volume of it all. Judgment is rendered in seconds, without deliberation, without the laborious crafting of Latin arguments. The anonymous denunciation from the past is now a viral post, its reach instantaneous and global. You see faces in the comments, fierce and unyielding, their words cutting like polished blades. There's an absolute certainty in their pronouncements, a conviction that allows no room for doubt, no space for nuance, no compassion for perceived error. The logic presented is often stark, binary, reducing complex human experiences to simple, damning categories. You recognize the familiar chilling pattern, the insistence on absolute purity, the swift condemnation of deviation, the systematic reduction of an individual to a single perceived flaw. The more you scroll, the more you feel a familiar, subtle tightening in your chest, a sense of unease, The endless stream of information, the constant barrage of certainty, the rapid-fire judgments. It all begins to feel like a modern labyrinth, constructed not of stone, but of pixels and algorithms. You are surrounded by a different kind of tribunal, its architecture invisible, its walls built from collective opinion, its power immense and pervasive. You realize that the human drive for absolute truth, the fear of deviation, and the chilling conviction that brooks no dissent, hasn't vanished. It has simply adapted, found new tools, new platforms, new ways to enforce its own relentless, dispassionate order, turning the vast, interconnected world into a surprisingly familiar kind of echo chamber. The artificial glow of a screen bathes your face in a cool, persistent blue light, a digital ghost of the archive's lamp, yet strangely reminiscent of the pervasive gloom in the medieval chambers. The air around you, though free from the musty smell of damp stone, carries the faint, sterile scent of ozone and the quiet hum of unseen fans. You are not bound by manacles, but your hands are fixed, almost hypnotically, on a smooth, cold surface, scrolling down an endless cascade of images and words. This ceaseless flow, this relentless consumption of information, mimics the steady, unyielding rhythm of the quill, the methodical pace of the Inquisitor's process. You read headlines, sharp declarative statements, feel the electric charge of opinions, facts, accusations, and judgments that flash before you. A relentless torrent. The anonymous denunciation of centuries past is now a viral post, its reach instantaneous and global, tearing at reputations with the same swift, cold precision as a decree of confiscation. You find yourself feeling that familiar prickle of anxiety, the subtle tightening in your chest, an echo of the public gaze of the auto da fe, branding you with its coarse wool. You feel the powerful tug, the almost irresistible urge to join the chorus, to share the absolute conviction that washes over these digital spaces. It's comforting, a kind of belonging, a release from the discomfort of uncertainty. But you also feel the ghost of that ancient labyrinth, the trap of logic without escape, the chilling ease with which truth can be manufactured and enforced by collective, unwavering belief. You remember the raw human pain beneath the dry records, the lives flattened by procedure, the quiet sorrow of the empty chair. This, you realize, is the final lesson echoing across time. The chill wasn't just in the medieval air or the cold stone, but in the absence of a vital heat, the warmth of doubt, the ember of empathy. Doubt, not as weakness, but as a necessary space for questioning, for resisting the absolute, for recognizing complexity where others see only simple binaries. Empathy, not as mere sentimentality, but as the deliberate, often uncomfortable act of trying to truly feel another's struggle, to bridge the distance, even across a screen, even when the immediate gratification is to condemn. You trace a finger along the smooth glass, feeling its cool surface against your skin. The profound human desire for certainty, for clear lines between good and evil is powerful, almost primal. It's what allowed the old terrors to flourish. And it's what, even now, in this bright, fast, interconnected world, constantly threatens to repeat those patterns, to rebuild those tribunals. They won't be made of stone and fire, but of swift judgment, digital ostracization, and the chilling, collective agreement on who is other. The true courage, then, isn't in absolute conviction. It's in the quiet, insistent courage to pause before condemning, to seek understanding before judging, to feel the difficult warmth of human doubt and empathy, even when the world demands you align, demands you believe without reservation. It's a constant personal battle, reminding us that the human spirit's greatest strength lies not in its unwavering certainty, but in its capacity for humble, persistent questioning and profound, compassionate connection.